At the Cathedral of Speed, Assen just witnessed absolute history. Ogura rose up, the crowd went wild, and Japan celebrated its first MotoGP win in 22 years. Welcome to the Explainer, everyone. Today, we are opening up the notebook to break down a completely chaotic 2026 Dutch Grand Prix. It's a race that really asks a fundamental rhythmic question, Who had the courage, who had the wisdom, and who had the speed? The Cathedral of Speed literally became a drumbeat of destiny this weekend. So let's walk through the lessons, the drama, and that African heartbeat behind the speed. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap to help us navigate the sheer volume of storylines. We'll start with Cathedral history, look at Aprilia's dominance, dive into the high attrition, analyze the chicane clashes, and wrap up with the new standings.
First up in our notebook, history at the Cathedral, breaking a decades-long drought.
22. When you look at the records, that is the staggering number of years Japanese motorsport fans have waited for a premier-class MotoGP win. I mean, if you're a fan, that's your definition of long-term. You have to go all the way back to Makoto Tomoda winning his home race at Motegi for Honda in 2004 to find the last time Japan stood on the top step of the premier-class podium. It was a drought that frankly felt like it might never end. But enter Ogura. Just 8 days after getting his maiden premier-class pole at Brno, he ends this massive 2-decade drought for his country. In this race, Ogura was really the young lion, striking right when the elders faltered. He didn't just win, he managed his tires perfectly, survived this crazy early race shuffle, and struck late when his rivals were just scrambling for grip. He has absolutely cemented his status as a legitimate rookie title contender. Moving to Chapter 2, Aprilia and Trackhouse dominate an American team's historic 1-2 finish. Aprilia completely locked out the first 4 places on the grid. That is a historic first for the Italian manufacturer. And get this, they were 9 seconds faster than the best of the rest. But the factory squad was actually upstaged by their American satellite team. Trackhouse Racing secured a flawless 1-2 finish. While Ogura took the victory by over 2 seconds, his teammate Raul Fernandez put in an incredibly strong pace. Fernandez, like the loyal warrior, followed his chief to glory, fighting off the 2024 world champion to secure the second step of the podium. Now, what's really interesting here is how Ogura actually rides that Aprilia. Jorge Martin, the 2024 world champion who finished third, was completely bewildered by Ogura's style. Martin noted that Ogura gets his body so low in the corners, it literally looks like he is constantly crashing, yet the bike stays remarkably straight. It's a uniquely aggressive, bizarrely effective signature style that somehow doesn't wear the tires out early. Even Martin admitted, "I won't try this."
But man, that aggressive style almost cost him everything on lap 16. Disaster nearly struck when Ogura accidentally touched a button between turns 1 and 3, re-engaging his rear ride height device. The whole thing jammed down. He instantly loses over a second to Fernandez and Martin. But showing absolute veteran composure, as a rookie mind you, Ogura realized he had to brake exceptionally hard to disengage the jam. He successfully popped it back up, and the very next lap, he left a full second faster than Martin, slicing past both riders to take a lead he'd never relinquish. Let's look at Chapter 3, a high attrition battleground, surviving the chaos.
Because Assen wasn't just about speed, it was a brutal war of attrition where just finishing was a huge achievement. 6 riders failed to see the checkered flag, and the casualty list reads like a who's who of MotoGP royalty. We had Ducati's Francesco Bagnaia, a 3-time Assen winner, retiring with brake issues on lap 15. We had Pedro Acosta pulling into the pits in sheer agony. We had Toprak Razgat Liolu suffering a sudden DNF, but perhaps the most shocking exit of all belonged to the championship leader coming into this race, Marco Bezzecchi. Right on lap 2, Bezzecchi suffered a massive 200 km/h low side at the super-fast turn 15, violently barrel rolling through the gravel trap. When asked about the cause, Aprilia Racing CEO Massimo Rivola didn't mince words, stating Bezzecchi was simply too fast. Pushing the absolute limits of the Aprilia in those high-speed sections had severe consequences. Thankfully, after being transferred to Groningen Hospital for CT scans, Bezzecchi was discharged with no underlying injuries. Meanwhile, the Ferrari-like drama for the KTM camp was entirely physical. Pedro Acosta was battling in the top group when he suddenly sat up on lap 13. While initially suspected to be a mechanical failure, Acosta later revealed he was suffering from carpal tunnel syndrome. It wasn't just arm pump, it was a total loss of feeling in 3 fingers of his right hand. Imagine the absolute terror of trailing Marc Marquez at over 300 km/h, completely unable to feel if your fingers are even grabbing the brake lever. That frightening reality forced his retirement and accelerated his need for immediate surgery before the next round. Which brings us to Chapter 4, Chicane Clashes and Penalties, Echoes of 2015. And this brilliantly illustrates how history has a funny way of repeating itself, especially at that infamous final chicane. Notice the parallel here. This year, Fabio Di Giannantonio launches an attack on Marc Marquez, makes contact at the apex, forces Marquez wide into the gravel, and cuts the chicane himself. But rewind 11 years to 2015, and Marquez was the one attacking Valentino Rossi in the exact same spot. That contact forced Rossi through the dirt to win the race. 11 years later, Marquez finds himself on the receiving end of a nearly identical aggressive chicane maneuver. Now, race direction deemed the initial contact a racing incident, and Marquez handled it with a lot of grace, saying he accepts it and will stay quiet. But he just couldn't resist a witty job when reminded of the 2015 parallels, joking, "At least in 2015, I made the chicane." Ultimately, the stewards did penalize Di Giannantonio, not for the contact, but for failing to cede the advantage after cutting the track. He was handed a long lap penalty. But the VR46 rider just put his head down, served the penalty, and remarkably fought his way right back through both Alex and Marc Marquez to reclaim 4th place. Marc Marquez crossed the line in 6th, but was ultimately demoted to 7th for a track limits violation on the very last lap. And finally, Chapter 5, the new championship standings. The order is inverted. So the crucial point is how these 26 chaotic laps reshaped the title fight. Marco Bezzecchi's brutal run of bad luck, scoring just 13 points in the last 3 rounds, has cost him dearly. By surviving the attrition and banking a 3rd-place finish, Jorge Martin inherits the championship lead. He now sits 7 points clear of Bezzecchi. Di Giannantonio is quietly climbing, just 16 points back. And the biggest story of all? Ogura. The rookie is suddenly just 25 points, literally exactly 1 race win away from the championship lead. Jorge Martin himself could hardly believe it. He's been recovering from injuries, missing preseason tests, struggling with intense back pain all weekend, and openly admitting he is still adapting to the Aprilia bike. Yet, despite all those physical hurdles, he leaves Assen leading the World Championship for the first time since he sealed his 2024 title. It really goes to show that in a season this volatile, consistency and sheer survival are just as valuable as pure pace. Which leaves us with this final thought. We have 12 rounds left in this incredible season. Can Ogura, the rookie riding a wave of historic momentum, close that 25-point gap and catch the veteran leader Jorge Martin? Or will Bezzecchi recover his early season form? Assen reminded us of a fundamental truth in motorsport. Speed thrills, but history is written by courage. Thank you for joining me for this explainer. Keep your eyes on the track because this 2026 season is far from over.